On August 15th, 1862, one issue of the London Evening Standard sold a prize-winning steel dress cage and reported an inquest into an 18-year-old woman who had burned to death wearing one. The product was called the cage crinoline. It was a dome of thin steel hoops joined by cotton tapes, worn under a woman's skirt to hold it wide. Before it appeared in the late 1850s, that shape took layers of heavy horsehair petticoats. The cage was lighter. It moved with the body. It was cooler in summer, cheaper to buy, and it made even an ordinary dress look fashionable. By 1860, the cage crinoline was one of the first truly mass-produced fashions. Factory lines turned them out by the thousands. Women at every level of society wore them, from aristocrats at balls to kitchen maids near coal ranges. The problem was the room around them. Victorian homes were built around open flame. Coal grates heated the parlor. Candles lit the hallway. Kitchen ranges burned day and night. Gas lights jutted from the wall. The cage made a skirt so wide that the wearer could misjudge her own hem. And the fabrics over it were cotton, muslin, gauze, and starched tarlatan. Light, airy, fashionable, and dangerously flammable. A servant reaching past a fireplace fender. A woman leaning toward a candle on a mantelpiece. A nurse adjusting a blanket near a sickbed fire. These were ordinary movements. The cage turned them into ignition risks. The steel hoops did not burn. They held the fabric out, opened space beneath the skirt, and helped air move upward. When the hem touched flame, the fire could climb from the ground before the wearer understood what had happened. In 1863, newspapers described a 14-year-old kitchen maid named Margaret Davy dying after her crinoline dress caught fire near a fireplace fender. That same year, reports also described 16-year-old Emma Musson killed after burning coke ignited her skirt. London's coroner, Edwin Lancaster, kept warning that deaths like these were more common than the public wanted to believe. Florence Nightingale noticed too. In Notes on Nursing, she warned that a nurse's wide skirt could catch fire from a grate or candle and spread danger to the patient's bed. She wrote to the Registrar General asking for the exact number of deaths from what she called this absurd and hideous custom. By 1862, that warning was being reprinted in newspapers as far away as Melbourne. The response was loud. Newspapers reached for words like Holocaust and Sati, turning domestic dress fires into moral theater. Lancaster even compared several years of London fire deaths among women to the Santiago church disaster in Chile, where roughly 2,000 people had died in a single blaze. The comparison was extreme, and that was the point. It made the crinoline sound less like a garment than a public menace. But the danger was not a single wicked object. The cage itself did not catch fire. The danger was the combination. Mass-produced hoops that made skirts enormous, cheap, flammable fabrics draped over them, and houses where open flame sat at floor level. That was a design problem. The papers often treated it as a character problem. The blame landed on women, on vanity, on refusing to dress sensibly, on wanting to take up space. The crinoline had already made critics uneasy. It let women fill a carriage, a doorway, a church pew. It could conceal a pregnancy or stolen goods. It looked like female independence in a culture anxious about exactly that. When the fire started, the criticism already had a shape. It became easy to say women had been warned and chose fashion over safety. As if a kitchen maid chose her uniform, or a factory had any reason to stop selling what everyone was buying. By the late 1860s, the extreme dome began to shrink. The silhouette flattened in front and shifted backward, becoming the crinolet and then the bustle. The fire deaths slowed. No law banned the cage. No manufacturer recalled it. Fashion simply moved on. Nightingale had asked for a count, and she had been right to ask. Period estimates suggest hundreds of women died in clothing fires in England during those years. Some later accounts put the figure higher. The exact number was never properly settled, partly because many of the dead were servants and working women, whose inquests were brief and whose names did not always travel far beyond the local paper. The crinoline panic is sometimes told as a warning about dangerous fashion. That misses the deeper pattern. The women who wore cage crinolines were not simply reckless. They were wearing what the factory made, what the shop sold, what the employer expected, and what the culture demanded. The danger was in the system around them. When the system killed them, the system called it vanity.